Tottenham are in talks with Zerbi. There's also interest in Marco Silva. Reports suggest that Igor Tudor will be leaving Tottenham by mutual consent. Tim Sherwood believes that he's the man who can keep Tottenham in the Premier League, whilst Danny Murphy believes that Igor Tudor has the possibility of staying. Dejan Kulusevski has met up with the Sweden squad, and Matisse Tell pulls out of international duty. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Lee and this is the Daily Tottenham News Headlines. We'll be going through all the news, the rumours and the reports making the headlines today. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do give us a subscription. If you're listening on audio channels, please do give us a 5-star review. Lots and lots to talk about today, so let's kick it off by talking through the Times saying that Tottenham are considering appointing a permanent head coach before the end of the season. Roberto De Zerbi, one of the names in the frame. The Spurs hierarchy face a huge decision over the international break over how to avoid relegation, with Sunday's harrowing 3-0 home defeat to Nottingham Forest, leaving them 1 point above the drop. One proposal explored including the possibility of a release clause being written into the Italians' contract, which accounts for the possibility of Spurs being relegated. The suggestion has been met with reservations, an alternative solution being discussed if a permanent hire is out of reach. If is having another attempt at hiring an interim that works alongside a fan favourite assistant with a Tottenham affiliation. Roberto De Zerbi is open to talking over a Tottenham if they stay in the Premier League. Spurs' status in the top 5 is far from being certain after a disastrous 3-0 home defeat to relegation rivals Nottingham Forest. Left them 1 point above the drop and 7 games to play. De Zerbi and Mauricio Pochettino are front runners for the job in the summer. Talks have already taken place with the Italian coach who used to be in charge of Brighton. De Zerbi is currently out of work after leaving Marseille in February, according to the Daily Telegraph. Tim Sherwood, I would keep them in the Premier League. I believe that someone with common sense keeps them in the Premier League, as stated on TalkSport and Sky Sports. Former midfielder Danny Murphy on Tottenham boss Igor Tudor and the 3-0 defeat against Nottingham Forest. I think it's possible for him to stay, I really do. It's really difficult for the players to play in an environment that's so deflated and toxic. The only way you can change that is either winning games, which they're not doing, or change manager. What the fans want, if they want to keep him in charge, it's 5 league games without a win. A new guy comes in, gets 1 win, and it can quickly turn. It's a risk worth taking, and I think they'll take it. The players don't really look like they're at it. They've had a couple of decent performances this week, and maybe people thought they were turning a corner. But confidence was low again after they conceded. He made 2 changes at half-time, and that didn't make them any better. If anything, they got worse as the second half went on. Wayne Rooney on Spurs and the Nottingham Forest game. Getting positive results against Liverpool and Atletico, I felt that they were getting back on track. Then to play the team you're fighting against relegation at home and lose 3-0 is an absolute nightmare. Obviously, West Ham losing helps them a little bit, but it couldn't have been worse day for Tottenham. You think a few years ago they were in the Champions League final, won the Europa League last season. To be on the brink of getting relegated is an absolute disaster. I can't believe they're down there, to be honest. 1 win for Tottenham changes everything. 1 win brings Leeds and Forest back into it. Of Spurs' remaining opponents, they could beat any of them on their day. I think big thing is confidence. We've seen that in the last week. They get a point at Anfield and then beat Atletico. A lot is in confidence and belief, not just from the players, but from the fans as well. And that just seems to be low as it can get at the minute. Former Spurs midfielder David Howe's on the Tottenham squad and current situation. It can only come from the players. We will scream our heads off in the stadium, but it has to come from them. To not have Kulusevski or James Maddison in the changing room all season has been a massive reason why, from where we are. But I do think Tottenham have the characters to stay up. I don't know if two will play again this season. Hopefully they do, but looking around the rest of the group, I think there is enough character, talent and hopefully belief to do so. Tottenham Hotspur have published the following short statement. Matisse Tel has withdrawn from the France under-21 squad for their upcoming 2027 European under-21 Championship qualifying matches in March. The 20-year-old forward has been in strong form for the Lily Whites in recent matches, but was forced off in the 67th minute during the Premier League defeat at Nottingham Forest last time out, and will join up with the national team this month. Matisse captained France under-21s during the last two qualifiers back in November and has scored 3 goals and provided 1 assist during the qualifying campaign so far, with the nation currently leading Group C. Sweden boss Graham Potter on Dejan Kulusevski. Dejan is in Spain, so I think he will come here and meet us. It will be nice to see him. At this stage in his rehab, it's okay for him. For others, it's more difficult because they are at a stage in their rehab where it means it is more difficult to be on the pitch. But Dejan will come by and it will be fantastic. And from Fabrizio Romero, Tottenham keep assessing internally best options for managerial situations to evolve in the next days, summer. Roberto De Zerbi, favourite candidate from June, and Italian manager open to discuss from summer. Marco Silva also being discussed internally. Team talk, Tottenham Hotspur and Igor Tudor have mutually agreed to part ways. Wow, so much all about the managerial situation at Tottenham. Apologies if I stumbled through a lot of those stories. So let's kind of go through them from the beginning and talk about De Zerbi. It feels like this is one of the stories that is making a lot of headlines at the moment. It's the one that keeps popping up. It's interesting, really. I personally don't think De Zerbi would come here at this moment in time. I think he would rather wait and see what happens. Do we get out of the relegation fight? Will he have funds? What kind of competitions is he going to have to consider? And so on. I don't think he's going to want to come to the Championship. And for me, I still feel like it's a risk. Yeah, he may come. He may be able to turn something around. He did play good football at Brighton. But of course, very fiery character who likes to have his own way. Is that something that's going to happen at Tottenham? Well, given our track record, you wouldn't have thought that was a match made in heaven. But, you know, a quality manager, he does know the Premier League. He has had some success there. If you take Brighton as the marker, I think the thing with Brighton is it seems that it doesn't matter who's the manager there, they seem to do really, really well. That says to me it's more about their structure than the actual manager themselves. A bit like Brentford, where they seem to just carry on. Thomas Frank's left and the new guy there is just carried on and doing really well. So I think a lot about the structure and about the confidence and about the scouting is more important. From a Tottenham point of view, my big issue really is this is about the players rather than the manager himself. I do think this is a good opportunity to change from Tudor, who may be able to, someone may be able to come in and do something different, but I do feel that that's a risk. And again, it will still need to be the players that make the difference. And if they don't, it won't matter who's there. The other one, obviously, Marco Silva, his name is constantly chucked in there. Again, I don't see this happening at this moment in time. Something in the summer, maybe, they'll be open to talking about it. But at this moment in time, I think the only real option is a former Tottenham man to come in for the 7 matches, talk about how Tottenham should be where the heart is, what it means, and all that kind of stuff. I think that's the only option you've got left that's going to give anything to these players, if I'm being brutally honest. So let's move on to the Tim Sherwood story. Tim Sherwood basically saying on talk, I think it was on Sky actually, he was talking about believing that he would be able to keep Tottenham in the Premier League. He says this is about common sense. This is about playing players in their right positions. This is about playing players that are in form and so on. And talking about, he talks a lot about Xavi Simons having a really good game against Atletico and then being dropped, and a right back being put in midfield in his position, sending the wrong message. And you can't really disagree with Tim from a lot of stuff he says. He does talk a lot of sense a lot of the time. I think his biggest issues tend to be around how forthcoming he is. It doesn't always sit well with leadership. Doesn't always sit well with players either. Short term, I think it probably could work. Long term, I think would be the issue. But I think if he can come in and keep us in the league, I'd take it, to be honest with you. And I think that's far more likely with Ledley King and Jermaine Defoe in there to galvanise the squad and talk about what this means to Tottenham fans. What does it mean to be a Tottenham player? And what success looks like. These are, successful players. So, yeah, I think that's more likely than anything. Danny Murphy suggesting that Tudor could stay. He could stay. Tottenham could just live with it, depending on his situation with his losing his dad. I'm not sure how focused he would be on it. As I've said previously, when I lost my dad, it was really tough, and I think most people will go through that, losing any parent. But I think when you're a man and you lose your dad, it does hit hard. So I think a lot of it is down to him, whether he wants to come back and lead the team. And then of course, then you talk about what Wayne Rooney says, and I agree. We could beat anyone on our day. We just not, and that's the problem. We should have beaten Forest. We probably should have lost to Liverpool. But we didn't. It's gone the other way. So we're no worse off than we were really, apart from feeling a little bit despondent after all the build up. But the games that are in there isn't anyone in there bar Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, where we never win, that you should be fearing. Everybody else you should be thinking we're on par with or better than, and able to get a result there. So it's just whether we've got the character, whether we've got the strength, whether we've got the mental capacity to really do that. David Howes, I agree with what David Howes is saying. Big characters out of the changing room, and like I've already said it in this video. This is about the players rather than the manager, and that's what he's saying. I'm happy that Matisse Tell was pulled out of the international game. I think he's an important player for us at the moment. He's starting to come into a little bit of form, and he is showing what it takes to stay in the division. So for me, I think it's important for us to keep him fit. Hopefully the knock that he got against Forest was nothing too bad, and maybe this little bit of time will give him enough time to recover from that for the running, because personally I think we're going to need him. Kulu meeting up with Sweden, well, as long as he's not playing football for them, then I'm okay with that, to be honest with you, because he could really do with getting himself back to Tottenham, and at this moment in time it feels like he's never coming back, and his career is over. But if it's a morale boost for them and it's a morale boost for him, then that's all good news. And I'm very happy to see it. And finally, Zerbi again, from Romano, who tends to know an awful lot of stuff going on, and he's saying that Roberto Zerbi and Marco Silva are the ones being discussed. We've already covered all of that, so let's see. He's suggesting that he's only really interested in the summer, so that kind of makes sense to me. But it's all about the manager at the moment at Tottenham, and that's probably obvious, because it's the big question. Can we stay in the league? Will another manager make a difference? Is Igor Tudor gonna walk away by mutual consent? There's a lot of people talking about that, and this would be the perfect time for him to do that for his own mental health, for his own family, and probably for the better of the club. But like I say, this is about the players. They've got to pick it up and step up. Anyway, listen, I've rambled on. Thank you so much for watching. As I said at the beginning, if you don't subscribe to this channel, please do that. It means the world. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the updates that Chris and the team do. Please do hit the 5-star reviews on audio channels, because these are all available on audio as well, if you prefer to just listen, walking a dog rather than looking at my ugly mug. As I said, my name's Lee, the Dorset Spur. I've got my own channel. If you'd like to come over and see more of what I do, then I'd be very, very glad to have you. You're more than welcome. Open to all opinions. Anyway, thanks for watching this. Appreciate it. Thanks for again, and I'll see you on the next one. Up the Spurs.